part 2 of why you should read aloud, especially to kids that already know how to read, and especially to middle school. When you read out loud, no matter what age it is, babies, toddlers, young elementary, middle schoolers, and yes, even high schoolers, you're going to give them vocabulary that they have never heard before. And if you're like me and you've always been a reader and you could figure out what words meant by the context clues by reading, but then you didn't know how they were pronounced and you use them in casual conversation and then people laugh because you've used them wrong. Well, if you read out loud, you're teaching these students how to actually pronounce those words. And here's a really good example of pronunciation. So I teach gifted students, gifted education, elementary and middle school. And my 8th graders had finished a project and we had time left in the period before we were going to start a new one. There just wasn't enough time. So I grabbed a game that I had bought for my own children that I brought into school called You're a Liar. And in this book, it's best with a group of people. One person turns around and there's a pile of liar cards and a pile of truth cards. And you're supposed to read these cards out loud to the person whose back is turned, and they have to guess which card is the lie. And as I listened to my 8th graders reading these, there was vocabulary. There were words that I was sure they should have known how to pronounce, and they had no idea. Words that I know are being spoken in the news right now, that I know they're talking about with their social studies teacher because they tell me what they're learning, and they didn't know how to pronounce these. And so when you read out loud, you're teaching them how to use these words and how to pronounce these words correctly. Because unfortunately, as I tell my students, the world judges you on how you present yourself, and that includes how you say words. And while that might not be fair, it's true. And then we teachers find that when these students hear these words repeatedly, they start using them, not only in conversation, they use them in their writing. And that makes their writing a higher level, which makes them do better in school. And then when they get to college and they have to write, their grades are going to be better. Do you see how this just, it's like a pyramid. We start reading out loud, which is an ad for them wanting to read that book or that author or that genre. And then they become better readers, and then they become better writers, and they become better conversationalists. And it just makes their lives better. Stay tuned for part 3.